Those who weren't going by train were just told the best thing to do is go south. And when you get into Czechoslovakia, you may find that they're helpful. But we sort of mugged up a phrase in Czechoslovakian, which I can't remember exactly, but it went something like this. Ja prísahám pri smrti mé matky jsem anglický officer. I swear by the death of my mother that I am an English officer.
Well, you always think there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and that light's going to be home. We thought it was very, very difficult to escape from Germany. And probably less than 1% of people who got out of camps got home. We thought there'd always be a chance.
But things went wrong from the start. It took over an hour to open the tunnel exit because the ground was frozen. And when they finally broke through, the diggers realized there had been a terrible mistake. The tunnel was too short to reach the safety of the woods.
The reason it was short, I don't know. I think, putting it bluntly, I think the surveyors boomed. And we couldn't get out and measure it on the ground.
Bushell and his team quickly devised a system to get the men out without being seen in the open. But valuable time had been lost. Already the escape was nearly 2 hours behind schedule.
The thing is, they didn't come and tell us what had happened. We just sat there and waited and waited. You know, you couldn't all chatter or anything. You just had to sit and sort of think your thoughts, because the guards did patrol at night outside.
Roger Bushell was number 7 into the tunnel, in the first group out. Following him, his escape partner, Frenchman Bernard Scheidhauer, number 8. Dennis Cochrane, number 16, traveling alone. Midnight, Tom Kirby Green, number 21. Escape partner, Gordon Kidder, Canadian, number 20. Jimmy James was number 39.
Finally, the word came for us to go, and, well, it was a very exhilarating moment, because we climbed down the shaft. It was like 30 foot down, like going down a ship's hold. And we finally got to the exit hole and looked up and saw the stars. The RAF motto came to mind, Per Radio ad Astra. And certainly we'd had a great deal of work. Now we were going up to the stars.
Jimmy James went out at 1:30 a.m. with Greek escaper Nick Skanzikas.
As you got through to the end, you were told to, there you are, guided, over there it is, cheerio, and you climbed up the ladder. And I had a hell of a job climbing up this ladder because it was pitch dark and I just couldn't get it right. Having got onto the first rung, I couldn't bend my knee far enough to get onto the second rung. But what I did, in fact, was pull myself up hand over hand, up 30 feet, you know, and sort of stop a bit and then pull myself up a bit more and finally get to the top.
Les Broderick, travelling with Canadian Henry Birkeland, was number 52 out of the tunnel.
And when I got into the woods and looked back, it was amazing this thing hadn't been found because there was a column of steam rising out of the hole. It was so hot down there and so cold outside.
6 hours in, and it was all going so well. But luck ran out at 5 a.m. A guard had stumbled on the tunnel exit. The escape was over.
was sometime in the early hours of the morning that heard a single shot, and you could feel the shock of that shot sort of quivering throughout the whole camp, and everybody else would be listening for that.
It was pandemonium. We knew immediately that the balloon had gone up, and it won't be long before the goons are here. You've got to destroy everything you could, which we promptly did. And the next thing is being hustled onto the parade ground. Obviously, they were trying to count, and I suppose the objective of those who were playing up was to fool the people on how many had got out, numbers, and they only do it by trying to sort of fall out of one rank and go into another, that sort of thing. There were one or two calls for them to still stand, so forth. They still tried it on, and finally the commandant stepped forward, drew and cocked his pistol, and said, "I shall personally shoot the next officer who moves."
Of the 200 escapers, 76 were free. But now they had to get away.
We got to our station about, I think it must have been about 4:30 in the morning. There was a Pole called Bonschein who was detailed to get our tickets because he spoke fluent German, and he had a leave pass, and he pushed this into the ticket clerk and said 12 tickets to Boberosdorf. And the man looked a bit surprised and went away and came back again and said 12, and Monschein said aggressively, "Ja, 12," and glared at him, and he went away again and produced our tickets. We looked out on a very snowy, bleak landscape, and after a while the Dodger leant over and said in a stage whisper, said, "I haven't seen such a snowy scene since I left Montreal."
I remember Plunkett telling me Roger Bushell came along the corridor, and he just put his hand down and slipped his hand into Plunkett's and just gave him a slight squeeze of the hand. Didn't say anything, didn't look at him. I noticed he was doing this to all the other escapers who were standing in the train. And this is Roger Bushell just saying that he was still in charge, wished him all the best, and so on.
It filled up with school children later on, by about 8 o'clock. And then suddenly a very tough woman guard came along and started shouting at Rusty Keros, who was an Australian with us. And we didn't know what she was saying, but it turned out he was just tearing him off for smoking.
For those not travelling by train, it was hard going.
It was all pine forest around there, and we got into an area where the snow was quite deep, and we laboured along and decided, right, we will have to. It's light now, we'll have to settle down and hope. And we could hear voices all day practically, but no one came near us, luckily. So I can remember clearly, I remembered all these stories of the Arctic that I've read when I was a kid about whatever you do, don't fall asleep in the snow because you won't wake up.
My father and Gordon Kidder were trying to get to Czechoslovakia. Now, what they were going to do after that, I don't know. Except, I think, hope that the partisans would somehow get them to somewhere neutral or somewhere where they could link up with British forces or something. So I think he got out he tried to get out and started the escape thinking he had a chance at least, and a chance had to be something to be taken.
The Germans had already launched a nationwide manhunt. But when Hitler got the news, the day after the escape, he flew into a rage. That same afternoon, Gestapo heads in 8 German cities received unprecedented orders, as Frank McKenna discovered 3 years later.